The war had been raging for years. No one really knew how it started or who the first to strike was. It was as though the galaxy had always been at war, fighting over resources, territories, and ideologies. Kael had been a soldier in this endless conflict, a soldier who had lost more than he could ever hope to regain. In a way, the war had already taken everything from him, but Kael didn't fight for revenge or justice. He fought to survive. Kael wasn't a commander or a general. He wasn't even a hero. He was just a human, trying to stay alive in the midst of a galaxy that seemed bent on tearing itself apart. What set Kael apart from the countless others around him was his ability to see beyond the violence and chaos. He could read situations, understand enemies, and adapt faster than most. In a world full of alien species and beasts, his survival instincts were as sharp as any weapon. That was how Kael found himself in the middle of a battlefield he had never expected to be in. Facing a creature no one thought he'd survive, an apex predator. The creature was massive, its body built like a tank, covered in dark armored scales that seemed almost invincible. Its eyes glowed an unnatural yellow, sharp and calculating. Focused entirely on Kael, the rumors about apex predators were terrifying. They were the galaxy's most feared beasts, deadly and untouchable. But standing there, with the creature's piercing gaze locked onto his, Kael didn't feel fear. He felt something else. Something strange, like a force pulling him toward the beast, as if it wanted him to understand something. The battle around him raged on, but Kael couldn't move. He had seen predators before, but this one was different. It wasn't attacking. Instead, it was observing, watching, and Kael could see something that no one else could, a vulnerability. The predator was not just a monster. It was alive with instincts and thoughts that Kael could almost read. Without thinking, Kael took a step forward. The creature didn't move, but its eyes followed his every move, its head slightly tilted, almost curiously. This was no time to think. Every instinct in Kael's body screamed to run or to attack, but he knew that wasn't the right move. The creature's growl was deep, rumbling from deep within its chest. But still, it didn't strike. Kael knew this was a test. In a world of endless battles, one mistake could mean death. But he wasn't about to make that mistake. Kael did something that no one would have expected. He knelt down, slowly, deliberately. He kept his movements slow and calm, making sure the predator could see every motion. He wasn't threatening it. He was showing it that he didn't want to be its enemy. To his surprise, the predator didn't attack. Instead, it moved forward, its massive head lowering just slightly as it sniffed the air around him. Kael didn't move. He didn't even breathe. Too loudly. It was a silent understanding between the two of them. Kael wasn't a threat. He was just there. And then, something unexpected happened. From behind the predator, a small shape emerged. A cub, the predator's offspring. Barely larger than a dog, but just as fierce. Kael's heart skipped a beat. He had been close to the apex predator before. But now, standing between the mother and her cub, he was in the most vulnerable position imaginable. But the predator didn't move. It didn't even growl. Instead, it let Kael approach. It was a moment unlike any other. A human, in the heart of a battlefield, standing before a creature that could tear him apart in seconds. And yet, here he was, allowed to stand beside the cub, the mother watching silently. Kael's hand hovered over the cub, unsure if it would allow him to touch. Slowly, he reached out. His fingers brushed against the cub's soft fur, and to his astonishment, the cub didn't flinch. It was the first time Kael felt a connection in a long while. The apex predator, the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, trusted him. Kael didn't know why. He didn't know how. But in that moment, he understood something deeper. The predator wasn't a monster. It was a creature like any other, capable of trust, of connection. The moment lasted only a few seconds. But it changed everything for Kael. The predator's gaze softened, its yellow eyes flickering with something close to approval. And as Kael pulled his hand away from the cub, he understood that this strange connection was not just about survival. It was about something far bigger. Something that could change the galaxy. The distant sounds of war seemed to fade as Kael stood there, realizing that he was no longer just a soldier in a battle. He was something more, something that this apex predator had never shown to any other human. He was a leader. But this was just the beginning. From behind him, a voice spoke, a quiet, observant voice that Kael had almost forgotten about. The alien girl. She had been watching him the whole time, her eyes filled with something that Kael couldn't quite understand. Was it curiosity? Was it awe? "You've earned its trust," she said softly. "Now you must earn mine." Kael turned to face her, feeling a new weight settling on his shoulders. The alien girl wasn't just a bystander. She had been observing him, judging him just as the predator had. And for some reason, in that moment, Kael realized that she might just be the key to everything. Kael's mind raced as he stood, watching the alien girl. Her words hung in the air, and the weight of her gaze made him pause. She had been quietly observing him during the tense interaction with the apex predator, and now that same watchful stare was fixed on him. He had earned the trust of a deadly creature, but now, the alien girl was waiting for something more. "I've earned your trust?" Kael asked, his voice slightly uncertain. "What does that mean? What do you want from me?" The alien girl took a slow step forward, her eyes never leaving his. Her features were sharp, striking in a way that Kael hadn't fully noticed before. Her skin was a deep shade of purple, and her eyes shimmered with an intelligence and intensity that felt almost alien to him, even though he had seen countless beings throughout the war. She had been silent for most of their time together, offering nothing but observations. But this time, there was something different in the air, something Kael could sense. "It means that you've proven yourself to be different from every other human I've encountered," she said calmly. Her voice was soft but carried an edge of authority. "Most would have tried to kill the predator or flee. But you," she paused, taking a breath, "you approached it. And in doing so, you've shown me something. Something that I can't ignore." Kael was still processing her words. What did she mean by "prove yourself"? He wasn't anything special, just a soldier who had learned to survive in the chaos of endless war. But now with her standing there in front of him, he couldn't help but feel the weight of something greater than survival pressing on his chest. "I don't understand," Kael said, shaking his head slightly. "I'm just trying to survive like everyone else. I'm not a leader, not a hero. I'm just trying to make it through this war alive." The girl gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Perhaps that's where you're wrong. You are a leader. You just don't know it yet." Her gaze flickered towards the apex predator and its cub in the distance, where the two creatures had retreated into the shadows. "The way you handled that situation, the way you approach them, it's not just about survival. You see things that others don't." Kael followed her gaze but didn't speak for a moment. He had never seen himself as a leader. He had never aspired to be one. But now, standing beside her, beside the predator, Kael started to wonder if there was more to this fight than just a battle for survival. Could he really lead these beings, unite them for a common cause? "I don't know if I can do that," Kael said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "The galaxy's divided. The factions are all fighting their own battles, and there's no way they'll agree on anything. The Korath, the Jikal, the humans, they'll never work together. I've seen too much division to believe in unity." The alien girl's expression shifted slightly, a trace of sympathy in her eyes. "That's exactly what the Enshrouded want you to believe. They want you divided, Kael. They want you broken so you can never rise above the chaos. But unity is possible. If you can bring them together, if you can show them that their survival depends on one another, Then maybe you will change everything. Kael's chest tightened. He could feel the weight of what she was asking. It wasn't just about fighting the Enshrouded. It was about changing the very foundation of the galaxy. And to do that, Kael would have to convince beings who had spent their entire lives fighting each other to lay down their weapons and fight for something bigger. Something they might not even believe in yet. How? Kael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How do I even begin to bring them together? I'm just one person. They don't trust each other. They'll never trust a human. The girl's eyes softened, and she stepped closer to him. It's not about them trusting you, Kael. It's about showing them that together, they're stronger than they could ever be apart. You've already earned the trust of the Predator. If you can prove that the same can be done with the other factions, they'll see that you are not just a soldier. They'll see you as a leader. Kael's heart beat faster. The enormity of what she was asking him to do began to sink in. This wasn't just a war against enemies. It was a war to unite the galaxy itself, to bridge the divide between species who had fought for millennia. The weight of that responsibility was overwhelming, but he knew there was no turning back now. Don't know if I'm ready for this, Kael said, his voice filled with doubt. But I have to try, for them, for all of us. The girl nodded, her eyes shining with something Kael couldn't fully understand. Then we begin with the Korath. We've already made progress with them. But to bring the others to the table, you must prove yourself further. And that will require more than just words. It will require strength, strategy, and courage. You will have to face the truth of what's coming. The Enshrouded are not just a military force. They are a shadow that controls everything from behind the scenes. If you can show the factions that there's more at stake than just territory, than just war, you might just convince them. Kael looked back at the Predator and its cub, the trust they had shown him still fresh in his mind. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps just like the apex Predator, the factions could learn to trust him if he showed them that unity was their only chance. For survival, I'll do it, Kael said, his voice stronger now. I'll bring them together. We have to stop the Enshrouded. The weight of the girl's words lingered in Kael's mind as he made his way back to the heart of the battlefield. The idea of uniting the galaxy's factions felt overwhelming, even impossible. The Korath had agreed to join him, but convincing. The other factions, especially the Kael, would be a different challenge altogether. The and Kael were prideful, fierce warriors who valued strength above all else. To them, alliances were a sign of weakness. But if he could bring them together, Kael knew it'd be the final piece of the puzzle. As he walked, Kael's thoughts drifted to the apex Predator. The creature had shown him a trust that no one had ever expected, allowing him to approach its cub. He'd never known that such a bond could exist between predator and prey. But in that moment, it felt like a small victory, a sign that not all was lost, that there was still hope for unity, even among the most unlikely of creatures. The girl walked silently beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. The Kael won't be easy to convince, she said, breaking the silence. But if you approach them with the same respect you showed the apex Predator, you might have a chance. Show them that strength doesn't just come from the battlefield, it comes from unity. Kael nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling of doubt gnawing at him. The Kael had never trusted anyone. To them, alliances were a sign of weakness. But if he could prove to them that this wasn't about submission, but survival, about the future of every species, maybe, just maybe, he could win them over. As they approached the Kael stronghold, Kael's stomach tightened. The stronghold stood on a rocky, windswept cliffside, towering above the desolate landscape below. It looked like a fortress, an impenetrable structure built to withstand anything. The Kael were a proud people, and their stronghold reflected that pride. The girl led him to the entrance, where the Kael guards stood, their eyes narrowed with suspicion. They were armed to the teeth, their weapons as much a part of them as their skin. Kael had heard stories about their fierceness in battle, their unyielding will to fight and survive. It wasn't just a battle for them, it was a way of life. "We come on behalf of the Alliance," the girl said, her voice calm but firm. "We seek your help." One of the guards stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Kael. "Help? The HFY do not help others, we fight for ourselves. We do not trust outsiders, especially not humans." Kael stepped forward, his voice steady. "I understand your hesitation, but this is different. The Enshrouded are a threat to all of us. If we don't unite, they will destroy us all. It's not just about fighting anymore. It's about survival." The guard's expression remained unchanged, but Kael could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Doubt? Curiosity? It was hard to tell. But it was enough to give Kael a glimmer of hope. "We do not join others simply because they say they're strong," the guard said. "Strength is proven in battle." Kael took a deep breath, his heart pounding. This was the moment. He had to prove himself, not just as a leader, but as someone who understood what the HFY valued. He wasn't here to ask for help. He was here to show them that strength could be found in unity. He had to be their equal, not their leader, not their subordinate. "I don't want you to join me because I'm asking," Kael said, his voice firm. "I want you to join because we're stronger together. I've seen what happens when factions fight alone. It's chaos. It's destruction. But if we fight as one, we can defeat the Enshrouded. Not as separate species, but as one united force." The guard studied Kael for a long moment, his eyes unreadable. Finally he stepped aside, nodding for Kael and the girl to enter. "The leader will hear you. But do not think your words will be enough. You must prove that you are worthy of the HFY's respect." Kael's heart raced as he followed the guard into the stronghold. This was it. The moment of truth. The HFY leader was known to be an imposing figure, one who demanded loyalty through strength. Kael couldn't afford to fail now. He had to show them that unity was the only way to win this war. They were led to a large hall where the HFY leader, a towering figure named Thalrak, sat waiting. His gaze was sharp, his face expressionless. His size was intimidating. But Kael refused to show fear. He had come too far to turn back now. Thalrak spoke, his voice deep and powerful. "You speak of unity, human, but you are not the first to try. What makes you different from the others who have failed before?" "You?" Kael stood tall, meeting the leader's gaze. "I'm not here to ask for your allegiance. I'm here to show you that together, we can defeat the Enshrouded. We've been fighting for too long. It's time we stop fighting each other and fight for something greater." Thalrak studied him, his eyes narrowing. "You think words will change us? We are warriors, Kael. We fight, we win, we survive. That is all." Kael took a deep breath. "Then prove it. Fight with us. Show me that the HFY are stronger than any single faction. Together, we can defeat the Enshrouded. But we need to fight as one." Thalrak stood slowly, his gaze never leaving Kael's. "Very well, human. You wish to prove yourself? Then fight." Kael stood tall, his chest heaving as the HFY leader. Thalrak stared at him, the weight of his unspoken challenge hanging in the air. Every instinct in Kael's body told him that this wasn't going to be an ordinary fight. This was more than just a test of physical strength. It was a test of his resolve, of his ability to stand as an equal among the galaxy's fiercest warriors. The room was silent except for the sound of Kael's heartbeat, which echoed in his ears. The HFY, towering over him, watched closely, their sharp eyes studying every muscle, every movement. They weren't just looking for combat skills, they were looking for something deeper. Respect. The kind that could only be earned through action, not words. Thalrak took a step forward, his presence filling the room with an almost suffocating pressure. "You wish to prove yourself," he said, his voice low and resonant. "But words alone will not win us over. The The Kael fight not for alliances, but for strength. If you want us to fight with you, you must show us that you are worthy. Kael swallowed hard but didn't flinch. He wasn't a stranger to battle, but facing Thalrak was different. This was not just about survival, it was about more than that. He had learned something from the apex predator's trust. Strength wasn't always about overpowering others. It was about understanding them, respecting them, and showing them that you could stand together, not against each other. Thalrak motioned to one of the nearby Kael warriors, who stepped forward with a large weapon. It wasn't just any weapon, it was a massive blade, gleaming with the sharpness of a predator's fang. If you want the Kael's respect, you will need to prove you can endure this. Thalrak's words were final, his voice carrying the weight of their culture. Kael's mind raced. He had never fought with such an imposing weapon, but he had to prove himself. The galaxy's future depended on it. He couldn't afford to hesitate, to back down. He had faced the impossible before, and this would be no different. With steady hands, Kael reached out and took the weapon. The weight of it felt foreign in his grasp, but he didn't let it show. The Kael warrior stepped back, giving Kael space to prepare. His eyes locked with Thalrak's, and in that moment, Kael understood the challenge fully. This wasn't just a test of physical strength, it was a test of willpower. It was about standing tall, showing that he could fight with everything he had, for something greater than just survival. The fight began without warning. The Kael warrior came at Kael with a speed that surprised him. The blade swung through the air, aiming for his chest. Kael barely managed to block it with his weapon, the force of the blow nearly knocking him off balance. His muscles burned as he struggled to hold the weapon steady, but Kael didn't give up. He had learned to push through pain, to adapt in the heat of battle. His mind cleared as he focused on the warrior in front of him, anticipating every move. Kael struck back, using his momentum to swing the blade in a wide arc. The Kael warrior parried the blow with ease, but Kael pressed forward, staying close, not giving him room to recover. The fight was a blur of steel and muscle, a dance of power and agility that only grew more intense as the seconds passed. With each blow, Kael could feel the weight of the Kael's respect beginning to shift. It wasn't about overpowering his opponent, it was about proving his worth. He moved fluidly, using the warrior's aggression against him, deflecting strikes and making calculated moves. Every action, every decision was about showing that he could hold his own, not just against one warrior, but against an entire race of fighters. Then, an opening appeared. The Kael warrior lunged forward, and Kael took the opportunity, swinging his blade downward in a clean strike that forced his opponent to step back. The force of the blow sent the warrior stumbling, and Kael seized the moment, stepping forward to disarm him. The fight was over. The room was silent for a moment. Kael stood with the weapon in hand, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His body ached, but the fight wasn't just physical. It was about proving something deeper to the Kael, to Thalrak, to the warriors watching, and to himself. Thalrak's gaze softened slightly, and he gave a deep approving grunt. "You have fought well, Kael," he said. "You have shown the Kael that you are worthy of our respect. We will stand with you." The other Kael warriors stepped forward, nodding in agreement. Kael had done it. The Kael, known for their pride and strength, had seen him not as an outsider, but as one of their own. This battle, this test was only the beginning. The path ahead would be filled with challenges, but Kael knew that with each victory, each step toward unity, the galaxy was one step closer to survival. The girl, who had watched from the side, stepped forward with a look of approval in her eyes. "You've proven yourself, Kael. The Kael are with us now. But this is only the beginning. We have to show the rest that unity is possible. If we fail, we lose everything." Kael nodded, his resolve firmer than ever. He had earned the Kael's trust, but the fight was far from over. They were closer to victory, but Kael knew the hardest battle was yet to come. With the Kael now officially part of Kael's alliance, the weight of leadership felt heavier than ever. The galaxy was still divided, and while Kael had managed to unite the fiercest of the factions, he knew there were others factions that remained distrustful, fearful of what unity would mean for their independence. But Kael wasn't about to stop now. He had already proved that unity was possible. And now he had to take the next step to show the other factions that together, they stood a chance against the Enshrouded. Kael sat by a campfire that night, his mind racing with plans, strategies, and the enormity of what lay ahead. The girl sat across from him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the fire as she observed him silently. She had become his closest ally, the one person who truly understood the stakes of the battle. She had seen him rise from a soldier to a leader. And now, it was her that Kael had to rely on to help unite the final factions. The Kael are with us, Kael said, breaking the silence. But it won't be enough. The Vraxians and the Korath, they're still holding out. The girl nodded, her face serious. I know. They are divided by history, by old rivalries. But the Enshrouded don't care about their grudges. They care about one thing: control. If we don't unite them, we will lose everything. Kael stared into the fire, the crackling of the flames filling the silence. The Enshrouded had been working in the shadows for too long. They had orchestrated wars, divided alliances, and left species vulnerable. If Kael couldn't bring the remaining factions together, the Enshrouded would have the galaxy at their mercy. We need to make them understand that the only way to survive is together, Kael said quietly. The Enshrouded aren't just an enemy, they're a force that could erase entire species. If we don't stop them now, there won't be anything left to fight for. The girl's eyes met his, her gaze unwavering. You've shown the galaxy that it's possible to unite. But now you need to convince them. You can't do it alone. Kael nodded, feeling the weight of her words. She was right. It wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about changing the way the galaxy saw itself. The factions had spent centuries divided by fear, pride, and history. Now Kael had to show them that their survival depended on trust, respect, and unity. It wouldn't be easy, but it had to be done. The next morning, Kael and the girl set out for the Vraxian stronghold, their path winding through barren landscapes and ruined cities. The Vraxians were a mysterious and isolated race, known for their technological advancements and their ability to stay out of the galaxy's conflicts. They were powerful, but they valued their isolation above all else. Convincing them to join the alliance would require more than just words. It would require proof. When they arrived at the Vraxian stronghold, they were greeted by the Vraxian leader, Talrith. She was an imposing figure, tall and armored, her eyes sharp with suspicion. The Vraxians had always kept to themselves, never trusting outsiders. But Kael wasn't an outsider anymore. He had earned the trust of the apex predators, the Korath, and the Kael. Now he needed to show Talrith that their alliance could offer more than just strength. Talrith, Kael said, his voice steady as he approached the leader. We've come to ask for your help. The Enshrouded are a threat to us all. If we don't unite, they will destroy everything. Talrith's expression remained unreadable as she studied him. We do not fight your wars, human. The Vraxians do not engage in the conflicts of others. We have our own interests to protect. I understand, Kael replied, his tone firm. But the Enshrouded don't care about your interests. They only care about control. If we stay isolated, we will fall one by one. But if we stand together, we can defeat them. Talrith looked at him for a long moment, her gaze intense. And why should we trust you? What makes you think we should risk everything to fight a battle that may not even be ours to win? Kael stepped forward, his voice unwavering. Because unity is not a risk, it's our only chance. The Korath, the Ji and Kael, the apex predators, they've all seen that alone we are vulnerable. But together, we have the power to stand against the Enshrouded. We have the power to secure the future of our species. The room was silent for a long moment as Talrith considered his words. Kael could feel the weight of her judgment, but he didn't back down. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to stop now. He had already earned the trust of powerful allies. The Vraxians were his last hope. Finally, Talrith spoke. Your words are bold, Kael, but you must prove that your alliance is more than just a dream. The Vraxians are not a people who follow others. If you want our help, you will need to show us that you are worth fighting for. Kael nodded, his heart pounding. I'll show you. I'll prove that we are stronger together. Kael stood before Talrith, the leader of the Vraxians, with a weight in his chest that felt heavier than any weapon he'd ever carried. The room was thick with tension, the Vraxians' cold, calculating gazes locked on him. He had already won over the Kael and the apex predators. But the Vraxians, powerful, intelligent, and fiercely independent, were different. They had lived through centuries of isolation, choosing to stay out of the galaxy's conflicts, but Kael's words had stirred something in them. Now it was his final test. I'll prove it to you, Kael said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. I'll show you that we are more than just words. We are stronger together than we ever could be apart. Talrith's eyes narrowed, her sharp gaze measuring him like a warrior sizing up her opponent. Words mean nothing. Prove it with action, Kael. Only then will we consider joining your cause. The challenge hung in the air, thick and palpable. Kael's mind raced. He had already done so much to earn the trust of the factions, but this was the last piece of the puzzle. The Vraxians held the key to their ultimate success. If he could prove his worth to them, the alliance would be unstoppable. But failure now would leave the galaxy fractured, divided, and vulnerable to the Enshrouded. The girl, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward, her voice calm yet insistent. You have to show them more than just strength. You have to show them that unity is power, that it's not about who leads, but about who stands together. Only then will the Vraxians believe in this. Kael looked back at her, his resolve strengthening. She was right. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for something bigger. He was fighting for the future of the galaxy. He turned back to Talrith. I'm ready. But the Vraxians must be the ones to decide how they want to fight. I'll face you, not as a leader, but as an equal. I'll fight side by side with you, and you'll see that this isn't about dominance or submission. It's about surviving together. Talrith studied him for a long moment, her eyes calculating. Then, with a nod, she motioned for her warriors to step aside, clearing space in the center of the room. Very well, prove it. Let's see if you can fight as one of us. Kael's heart beat faster as he stepped into the center of the room. Talrith was no ordinary warrior. She was the heart of the Vraxian strength, their leader, and a force of nature. If Kael could stand beside her, fight alongside her as an equal, then he would prove that unity was the only way forward. Fight began in a blur of motion. Talrith came at him with the full force of a warrior who had spent a lifetime honing her skills. Her blade moved with precision, sharp and fast, but Kael didn't back down. He had fought countless battles. But this wasn't just about his survival. This was about showing Talrith and the entire galaxy that there was a future beyond the war. A future where they could stand together and win. Kael matched her every move, parrying her strikes with everything he had. The Vraxian warriors around them watched intently, their eyes sharp, waiting to see if Kael could truly hold his own. He wasn't fighting for victory. He was fighting for respect, for the future of the galaxy. And he wasn't going to let that slip away. The clash of steel echoed through the room as Kael and Talrith exchanged blow after blow. The intensity of the fight didn't ease, it only grew fiercer, as both warriors tested each other's limits. Kael's muscles burned with exhaustion, but he didn't falter. He could feel the Kael, the apex predators, and the Koroth all watching, expecting him to prove something more than his strength. Then, in a sudden move, Kael disarmed Talrith, knocking her weapon from her hand with a swift, calculated strike. For a moment, there was silence. Kael stood over her, breathing heavily, but he didn't press the advantage. He had won the fight, but it wasn't about winning. It was about showing her that he was willing to fight with her, not against her. Talrith looked up at him, her eyes narrowing, and for the first time, Kael saw a flicker of approval in them. She stood, offering him a hand. "You've proven yourself, Kael. You're no longer just a human soldier. You are a leader." Kael took her hand, helping her up. "This isn't about leadership," he said, his voice steady. "It's about us, standing together." Talrith's expression softened, the weight of the moment settling between them. "Then you will have our support. The Vraxians are with you." The room erupted in murmurs as the Vraxians, once known for their prideful independence, began to show signs of approval. The once impenetrable walls of their isolation had begun to crack. Kael had done it. The final faction had joined the alliance, and with it, a united front that would stand against the Enshrouded. Kael turned to face the girl, his heart swelling with pride. "We did it. We've united them." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "Now we fight. The galaxy is ready to face the Enshrouded, and it will be because you showed them that strength comes from unity."